The ship's engines hummed a steady, almost soothing drone, but inside the cargo bay, chaos hummed at a much higher frequency. Sparks flew across the half-repaired console as Malik, the human engineer, cursed under his breath, crouched over a tangle of circuits and wires that seemed to have a mind of their own. He was used to challenging tech, alien machines, and things that defied logic, but the latest shipment, an armor-clad, heavily armed being who didn't speak much but radiated authority, was a complication Malik had not signed up for. "Are you done yet?" The armored figure's voice boomed, mechanical yet strangely melodic. It carried a weight that made even the ship's AI hesitate for a fraction of a second. Malik looked up, squinting through the glare of sparks. The being leaned on its plasma blade, which emitted a faint green glow across the metal floor, highlighting its war-torn armor and intricate insignia. "Almost," Malik said, trying to sound confident. He wasn't. Sparks jumped again, and he yelped, narrowly dodging a rogue arc of electricity. "I need the suit operational for the skirmish on Cortex Prime," the armored warrior said, her voice clipped. There was a slight hint of impatience, as though Malik's fumbling hands could cost a planetary invasion. Malik froze, realizing he'd been treating this as another alien tech job. He didn't even know her name. And from the looks of it, she didn't intend to reveal it any time soon. "Cortex Prime?" Malik muttered. "Isn't that kind of a hostile zone?" He wiped sweat from his forehead. The warrior tilted her head slightly, studying him, then gave a slow nod. Malik didn't get the impression that she appreciated jokes. "Right. Hostile. Got it. More reason to finish this thing fast," he said, voice cracking slightly. The situation was absurd, really. Here was Malik, a human who had fixed everything from hyperdrive collapsers to AI companions gone rogue, crouched on the floor with a multimeter in hand, while a literal interstellar warlord leaned over him, tapping impatiently on her blade. And somehow, he was supposed to make her suit, this marvel of alien combat engineering, function flawlessly before it was needed to slaughter hundreds on a distant planet. Malik's mind raced. He could handle tech. He could handle alien protocols. But authority? Power? The sheer presence of this woman, it was unlike anything he'd faced. She wasn't just a soldier, she was, he thought fleetingly, a galactic problem wrapped in armor. And Malik had a knack for getting himself into galactic problems. "Is it supposed to spark like that?" she asked suddenly, her tone unexpectedly casual, as if she were commenting on a broken coffee machine rather than near-fatal circuitry. Malik swallowed hard. No, ma'am. That's not typical." He reached for another tool, but the sparks jumped again, and he yelped, flinging a wire into the corner with an exasperated clang. She raised an eyebrow. "Do humans always scream when they encounter technology?" Malik paused. Usually not," he said honestly, although the current situation might warrant an exception. She chuckled, or rather, a sound that was dangerously close to amusement, and shook her head. Malik realized, for the first time, that this woman had an actual sense of humor. A deadly, possibly galaxy-destroying sense of humor. Malik adjusted a small circuit and held his breath. The lights on the suit flickered then glowed steadily. "There we go," he said, relieved. The warrior examined it, running a gauntlet hand across the armor plates, then nodded with what seemed like approval. "Functional," she said simply. Malik felt a surge of pride. Functional was good. Functional meant he hadn't died yet. "What's your name?" he asked cautiously, hoping to inject some normalcy into the tense room. The warrior paused, as if considering the question for the first time in her existence. "You may call me Zha'rielle," she said finally, her voice softening, though it still carried that undertone of authority. Malik blinked. "Zha'rielle, okay. Got it." He extended a hand instinctively. She looked at it, then at him, then, surprisingly, shook it. Malik straightened, trying to hide his relief and fascination. This was absurd. A human engineer shaking hands with a Galactic Empress, or so he would discover later. He was about to ask another question when the ship jolted violently, throwing them both off balance. Alarms blared, and red lights flooded the room. Malik scrambled to regain footing, and Zha'rielle's blade shot out instinctively, cutting a support beam in half with a shower of sparks. "Incoming!" the ship's AI announced in a panicked tone. Malik gaped at the display. An armada of unknown fighters had locked onto their coordinates. The cargo bay shook again as a distant explosion rocked the hull. Zha'rielle's helmeted head turned toward him. "We have no time for introductions, engineer. You will assist me, or you will die." Malik's heart raced. Assisting her? The casual words of a galaxy's most lethal warrior somehow sounded like a challenge. Malik gulped and nodded. "Right. Assist. Got it. No problem. I've handled worse." And as he scrambled to recalibrate the suit systems for combat on a ship under attack, he couldn't help but think how unfairly hilarious this situation was. He'd fixed malfunctioning hyperdrives, dodged exploding AI cores, and even negotiated with a few hostile alien warlords. But somehow, none of that prepared him for working on a deadly war suit, while the galaxy's deadliest warrior glared at him, and their ship careened through enemy fire. Somewhere deep inside, Malik knew he was about to be tested in ways he never imagined. The sparks, the blaring alarms, the armored woman with a deadly grin, it all added up to a perfect storm. A storm where a human engineer might just prove that brains, courage, and sheer stubbornness could outmatch even the most lethal armor in the galaxy. And Malik, ever the optimist, muttered under his breath, "Well, this is going to be fun." The ship rattled violently as it surged through the asteroid field, alarms screaming in every corner. Malik gripped the nearest console, eyes wide as the holographic display flickered with red warnings. "I've calibrated shields to maximum, but these fighters, they're adapting too fast," he yelled over the cacophony. Zha'rielle's green visor glinted as she assessed the situation, her armor plates catching every flicker of emergency light. "Then we adapt faster," she said, voice calm, deceptively calm for a situation that should have induced panic. Malik stared at her. Calm? How was she calm? Their hull was being shredded by plasma blasts from unknown ships that seemed to anticipate every move. Malik's hands flew across the interface, rerouting power to defensive emitters while Zha'rielle moved like a shadow in the chaos, issuing precise commands through the ship's comm system to their few crew members. "Sir, the aft engines are compromised," a junior officer shouted. Malik's stomach dropped. If they lost propulsion, they would be sitting ducks in the middle of a war zone. Zha'rielle's gauntlets glowed as she slammed a fist onto the central console, sending a pulse through the ship's emergency system. "Then we don't retreat," she said. "We fight smarter." Malik blinked. Fight smarter. Somehow, that sounded terrifyingly vague and impossibly heroic at the same time. "Smarter how?" Malik shouted, scanning the failing systems. Sparks erupted from a nearby conduit, narrowly missing his face. He realized that the normal solutions, rerouting power, reinforcing shields, weren't enough. This required something creative. Something human. And Malik had a habit of doing the unexpected. He grabbed a loose nanite repair kit and ripped open the panels of the aft engines. "Okay, Zha'rielle, listen. I think I can jury-rig a reactive microfield to temporarily boost engine output. It'll be messy, it'll be dangerous, but it might just work." She tilted her head, considering him. "I trust your human improvisation, if it doesn't explode in our faces." Malik smirked, adrenaline pumping. Explosions were part of the fun anyway. He worked frantically, weaving wires, fusing components, and overriding safety protocols he normally wouldn't touch. Sparks flew. Smoke hissed. Somewhere behind him, Zha'rielle cut off an enemy fighter with a well-timed plasma slash, the weapon singing as it sliced through armor. Malik couldn't help but glance at her, impressed and slightly terrified. This wasn't just a warrior, this was a force of nature in a walking, armored exoskeleton. Minutes blurred into chaos. Malik's improvised device emitted a low hum, and he held his breath as he activated it. The engines coughed, spluttered, then roared to life with a surge of energy that sent the ship spinning. The enemy fighters scrambled, caught off guard by the sudden maneuver. Malik's eyes widened. He had actually done it. Against all odds, the ship responded to his patchwork solution. Good thinking, human, Zha'rielle said, her tone carrying just a hint of amusement. Malik, still catching his breath, tried to hide a grin. Compliments from a Galactic Empress, or whatever she truly was, were rare and dangerous, but oddly motivating. Thanks, he muttered, glancing at the glowing panels he had just cobbled together. Don't die on me now. She gave him a look that could melt steel. Malik shivered. Before he could dwell on the compliment, the comm system crackled. Incoming boarding pods, the AI warned. Malik groaned. First, the fleet attack. Now they were about to be boarded. He turned to Zha'rielle. Boarding pods! We need to, what do we do? She moved beside him, aura of authority radiating like a magnet. We repel them. With ingenuity and speed. And you, she pointed at him, will help me make sure every defensive system works faster than they can breach our hull. Malik swallowed. His human ingenuity versus a galactic-scale assault? This was ridiculous. But absurdity had always been his forte. He darted from console to console, overriding protocols, rerouting power to automated turrets, and modifying gravity fields in the cargo bay to slow down enemy movements. Each time a pod breached, the turrets fired, the field shifted, and the attackers stumbled. The combination of alien combat skill and human improvisation created a choreography of chaos that was strangely effective. Then a new complication arose. The enemy fleet deployed a high-frequency EMP that threatened to disable every system Malik had so desperately patched together. Sparks erupted from the consoles, and the ship's lights flickered. Malik's heart raced. If that hits, everything goes dark, he muttered. Zha'rielle's visor glinted. Then we make our own light. She lunged forward, activating a secondary power source embedded within her armor. Electricity arced across her gauntlets, cascading into the ship's systems, shielding them from the EMP. Malik gaped. You just... He didn't finish. Words seemed trivial in the face of the audacity she displayed. With a few swift commands, she redirected power through the ship, restoring functionality to every critical system just as another wave of boarding pods hit. Malik adjusted the gravity fields, turbocharged the turrets, and watched as the enemy forces faltered, unable to handle the combined ingenuity of human and Empress. By the time the last pod was neutralized, Malik slumped against the console, breathing heavily. Zha'rielle approached, her armor scorched but unbroken. She clapped a gauntlet hand on his shoulder, a surprisingly human gesture, and said, You have courage, human! And creativity. Most would have panicked. Malik managed a weak laugh. Yeah, well, humans have a reputation for surviving the impossible. She tilted her head, studying him for a long moment. Perhaps we underestimate you. Malik felt a mix of pride and unease. The thought that he, a single human engineer, could hold his own against galactic threats alongside a warrior of her caliber was exhilarating and terrifying. As the ship steadied, alarms quieted, and the damaged fleet began retreating, Malik realized something profound. The stakes weren't just about survival anymore. They were about ingenuity, trust, and the undeniable fact that sometimes, humans, against all odds, made the universe bend in ways no one expected. And Malik? He was just getting started. The warning klaxon blared again, more insistent this time, shaking the ship to its core. Malik gripped the console with both hands, knuckles white, as the holographic display showed a massive enemy dreadnought emerging from hyperspace, its hull bristling with weapons, its shields glowing ominously. That's a whole capital ship! Malik gasped. Zha'rielle's visor reflected the red glare of the alert lights as she surveyed the approaching behemoth. It appears they've sent their flagship. We've been lured into a trap. Her tone was calm, but the weight behind her words was undeniable. Malik's mind raced. Every strategy he had tried so far relied on smaller craft, boarding pods, and their ship's agility. Against a dreadnought? Conventional tactics wouldn't hold for more than a minute. Sparks flew from the consoles as he rerouted emergency power to the thrusters, hoping to increase maneuverability. Zha'rielle, if that thing hits us. He didn't finish. She cut him off with a sharp gesture. We won't be hit, she said simply. Malik stared at her, incredulous. We? How exactly? Zha'rielle moved past him, stepping into the center of the cargo bay, her armor plates whirring softly. You've given me ingenuity, human, she said, her voice calm yet commanding. Now I will give you strategy. Together, we turn their strength against them. Malik's stomach twisted. Together? He echoed. He wasn't used to being on equal footing with interstellar warriors. And yet, the calm in her words, combined with the deadly glint in her visor, made him realize that improvisation alone wouldn't save them. They needed audacity, creativity, and absolute synchronization. As the dreadnought's weapons locked onto them, Malik had an idea. If we can overload their targeting sensors, he muttered, scribbling calculations on a floating data pad. Zha'rielle followed his eyes, nodding slowly. We create a feedback loop using our own energy signature, she concluded. You will channel it. I will direct it. Timing must be perfect. Malik blinked. Channel energy? Direct it? This was beyond jury-rigging circuits. But adrenaline sharpened his focus. Okay, let's do this. The ship trembled violently as the dreadnought fired a massive plasma barrage. Zha'rielle's blade sliced through the air, releasing a controlled shockwave that deflected some of the incoming fire. Malik, meanwhile, directed all remaining power through the experimental conduits he had rigged earlier. Sparks licked the walls, the hum of energy rising to an almost unbearable pitch. The feedback loop was ready. One miscalculation, and their ship would implode in a spectacular fireball. Now! Zha'rielle shouted, leaping onto a reinforced platform and driving her gauntlets into the central power conduit. Malik's hands flew across the controls, his own energy signature streaming into the loop. The ship shuddered as energy surged outward, interacting with the dreadnought's sensors. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, with a high-pitched wail, the enemy dreadnought's targeting systems overloaded, its weapons firing blindly, some shots even hitting its own fleet. Malik nearly fell out of his chair in disbelief. It worked! He shouted. Zha'rielle's armor reflected the chaotic red and green flashes of failing enemy systems as she scanned the dreadnought with precision. It worked because you adapted, human, she said. And because I knew exactly when to push. Timing is everything. But there was no time to celebrate. The dreadnought, though crippled, wasn't defeated. Its hull shuddered as emergency thrusters fired, and its secondary weapons came online, targeting them with deadly precision. Malik's heart raced. Secondary weapons! Shields won't hold. Zha'rielle's visor glowed brighter. Then we improvise again, she said, her voice like ice. Malik realized that improvisation had become their lifeline, their defining weapon. He grabbed a loose nanite module and hurled it into the conduit she was holding. Sparks danced along the armor, creating a temporary plasma shield around Zha'rielle. The energy loop fed through it, amplifying their defensive systems while destabilizing the dreadnought's shields. Malik had no idea if it would hold. All he knew was that it had to. The dreadnought's main cannon charged, a massive sphere of energy forming and casting a shadow over their ship. Malik swallowed hard, sweat running down his face. Zha'rielle leapt from the platform, her blade cutting through the air as she struck the cannon's exposed targeting array. Malik adjusted the energy loop just in time, sending a blinding surge through the enemy systems. The cannon exploded outward, its energy redirected harmlessly into space. Malik stared in awe. We actually did it! Zha'rielle landed beside him, armor scorched but intact, breathing steadily. We did, she said. But the war is not over. They will return. They always do. And next time, we must be ready. Malik nodded, adrenaline still pumping. His human mind had danced with danger, improvised in impossible conditions, and survived. And now, alongside Zha'rielle, he felt an unfamiliar certainty. humans could turn even the deadliest threats into opportunities. For the first time, Malik understood the paradox. The more impossible the challenge, the greater the chance for human ingenuity to shine. And with Zha'rielle by his side, wielding authority, power, and precision, there was almost no limit to what they could achieve. The dreadnought lay disabled in the void, their ship battered but alive. And Malik? He allowed himself a small, victorious grin. Against insurmountable odds, human creativity and courage had not only survived, they had triumphed. The echoes of the destroyed dreadnought still vibrated through the hull when Malik finally allowed himself to exhale. The ship shuddered lightly, but it held, a battered testament to human ingenuity and Zha'rielle's lethal precision. Outside, the enemy fleet had begun retreating, likely reassessing the threat that two unlikely allies, one human, one empress, posed. Malik leaned against the console, wiping sweat from his brow, and allowed himself a small, triumphant laugh. We actually survived that, and I didn't even blow anything up, yet. Zha'rielle's visor tilted toward him, catching the glint of his grin. You underestimate yourself, human. Today, your improvisation, courage, and absurd audacity saved this ship. You have learned to trust your instincts in chaos. Malik raised an eyebrow, unsure if he should be flattered or terrified. Instincts? I mostly just panicked and hoped for the best. She chuckled softly, a sound that vibrated even through her armored helmet. And yet it worked. Sometimes humans thrive on chaos. I should have known better. Malik shook his head. Wait, better? He asked, his curiosity overcoming his exhaustion. What do you mean? Zha'rielle took a moment, scanning the readouts of the ship, her tone calm but deliberate. You have saved not only your own life but mine. And in doing so, you've proven that humans cannot be underestimated. Their ingenuity, unpredictability, it is a weapon the galaxy often fails to recognize until it is too late. Malik blinked, a mix of pride and disbelief flooding him. Somehow, amidst alien hierarchies and galactic politics, he had earned a nod of genuine respect from someone who could command fleets without blinking. The emergency lights flickered, then normalized, casting a softer glow across the cargo bay. Malik's eyes fell on Zha'rielle, standing tall amidst scorched armor and flickering power conduits. A question he had avoided asking during the chaos finally pressed itself forward. So why didn't you tell me you were an empress? Zha'rielle's posture remained statuesque, yet Malik caught the faintest hint of amusement in the tilt of her head. I wanted to see if you would treat the challenge as it was, without fear of titles, protocol, or politics. You passed. Malik let out a low whistle. Wait, you mean I just helped an empress without knowing she was an empress? And lived? He shook his head in disbelief, then grinned. That's actually amazing. I think I need to sit down. Zha'rielle's armor creaked as she approached, her movements surprisingly fluid for something that looked like it could crush planets. You have a way of navigating impossible situations, human. That is a gift. One that will serve both of us, and perhaps the galaxy, well in the future. Malik laughed, feeling the tension finally ebb away. The ship was still damaged, the systems frantically repairing themselves, but the universe had, against all odds, given them a moment of victory. He glanced around at the wreckage and improvised circuitry, realizing that sometimes survival wasn't about perfection, it was about creativity, courage, and daring to take risks no one else would. And humans, apparently, excelled at that. Zha'rielle turned, walking toward the bridge with the grace of someone who ruled millions but now found herself in partnership with one human. Malik followed, curiosity piqued. So, what now? He asked. Zha'rielle paused, her visor glinting in the dim emergency lights. Now, we prepare for the next challenge. The galaxy underestimates humans. That is a mistake we will ensure they do not repeat. And, she added, glancing at him with a faint smirk, we do it together. Malik grinned. Together. Right. So, you handle the fleets and empires, I'll handle the tech disasters and improvised chaos? Zha'rielle's laugh resonated through the corridor, armor whirring softly. Precisely. Your resourcefulness and unpredictability complement my strategy. Together, we will be unstoppable. Malik shook his head in disbelief. He had always thought human ingenuity was limited to repairing broken machines or surviving minor crises. Now, he realized it could rewrite the rules of entire conflicts. As they reached the bridge, Malik noticed the starfield outside, the remnants of the destroyed dreadnought drifting slowly into the void. The sight should have been terrifying, but in the calm that followed chaos, it was almost poetic. He realized that humans, with their stubborn creativity and audacity, were never just survivors, they were catalysts, forces of change in the galaxy. And right now, Malik was living proof. Hey, Zha'rielle, Malik said, leaning on a console and smiling wryly. Next time, maybe give me a little warning before I end up improvising to save an entire starship against a flagship. She tilted her head, visor reflecting starlight. Where is the fun in that, human? You might have failed if I had. Malik chuckled. Yeah, probably. But hey, at least I got to learn from the galaxy's deadliest Empress while nearly frying myself in the process. Zha'rielle's armor shimmered softly under the bridge lights, a subtle acknowledgement of humor in her usually deadly demeanor. Indeed, she said, almost lightly. And perhaps, in the chaos, humans and empresses alike can learn from one another. Strength, creativity, courage, they are universal. Malik nodded, feeling an odd warmth of pride. Against impossible odds, they had survived, adapted, and triumphed. And in the process, he had discovered that humans were not just capable, they were extraordinary. As the stars stretched into the distance, and the ship hummed back to stability, Malik allowed himself one final thought. No matter how vast the galaxy, no matter how deadly the threats, there was always room for human ingenuity, stubborn courage, and perhaps, a touch of humor. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to change the course of the universe.